Have you ever heard of Coral Castle in Florida? It's a massive structure made of megalithic stones, some weighing up to 30 tons. Sounds like a huge construction project, right? Well, what if I told you it was built by just one man, standing only 5 feet tall and weighing 100 pounds? This isn't a myth, it's the incredible true story of Edward Leedskalnin. Born in Latvia in 1887, Ed was a quiet, private man. His life took a dramatic turn when, at 26, he was engaged to be married to a girl he called his Sweet 16. But the day before their wedding, she broke off the engagement. Heartbroken, Ed left Latvia and began a journey that would eventually lead him to Florida. It was there, fueled by his lost love, that he embarked on a project that would mystify the world for decades. Starting in 1923, for over 28 years, Ed single-handedly quarried, carved, and erected more than 1,100 tons of oolitic limestone into a sprawling monument. He worked mostly at night, under the cover of darkness, using only simple hand tools he fashioned himself. How did he do it? That's the million-dollar question. When people asked, Ed would simply say he understood the laws of weight and leverage. He claimed to have rediscovered the secrets of the ancient pyramid builders. Neighbors reported seeing him move the massive stones as if they were helium balloons. Some even said they saw him singing to the stones, seemingly levitating them into place. He created a 9-ton gate that moves with the touch of a finger, a Polaris Telescope perfectly aligned with the North Star, and rocking chairs made of solid stone. He built this entire kingdom of rock without any modern machinery, no heavy cranes, no assistance whatsoever. In the mid-1930s, when a new subdivision threatened his privacy, Ed decided to move his entire castle 10 miles away. Think about that for a second. He moved the whole thing, stone by giant stone, all by himself. He hired a truck driver for transport, but insisted on loading and unloading the colossal blocks alone, again, usually at night, away from prying eyes. The driver would leave his flatbed trailer at the site, and when he returned the next morning, it would be loaded with stones, as if by magic. Ed wrote several pamphlets explaining his theories, talking about magnetic currents and the secrets of the universe. He believed that all matter is held together by magnetism, and that he had figured out how to manipulate it. But his writings were cryptic and didn't fully explain his methods. Was he a forgotten genius who tapped into some fundamental force of nature? Or was there a simpler explanation that we've all missed? When Ed passed away in 1951, he took his secrets with him. He left behind no detailed plans, no blueprints, no confession. All we have is the result, Coral Castle, a testament to one man's unyielding determination, and a puzzle that engineers and scientists still can't definitively solve. It stands today as an incredible monument to a lost love, but also as one of the most baffling engineering feats in modern history. What do you think? How did this one small man build such a colossal wonder? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that challenge what we think we know. By the early 1920s, Edward Leedskalnin had settled on a quiet piece of land just outside the farming community of Homestead. The land was flat, humid, and covered with dense vegetation. Beneath the thin layer of soil, however, lay something that would become the raw material for one of the strangest construction projects in American history. Oolite limestone. This porous coral rock had formed naturally thousands of years earlier when the entire region had been submerged beneath an ancient ocean. The stone was abundant, but cutting it into massive blocks and shaping it into structures was an exhausting and difficult task, even for trained construction crews. Edward planned to do it alone, armed with little more than hand tools, homemade equipment, and an unwavering determination. He began carving the stone directly from the ground beneath his property. The first blocks were enormous. Some weighed several tons. Others would eventually exceed 30 tons. Each one had to be cut, shaped, lifted, transported, and placed into position with perfect balance. Yet something about Edward's method immediately raised suspicion among the few people who lived nearby. No one ever saw him working during the day. Instead, Edward followed a strange routine. As the sun disappeared and darkness spread across the fields, he would begin his work. All through the night, faint metallic sounds echoed across the property. The quiet rhythm of tools striking stone carried through the humid Florida air. By the time morning arrived, everything would be silent again. Neighbors occasionally walked past the property out of curiosity, but Edward guarded his work carefully. He was polite, even friendly, but he never allowed visitors to watch him move the stones. If someone approached while he was working, he would immediately stop. Then he would calmly wait for them to leave. This secrecy only deepened the mystery. People could see the results. Massive blocks of limestone slowly began to appear, forming walls, sculptures, and strange geometric structures across the property. But no one ever witnessed the moment when the stones were actually lifted or positioned. It was as if the castle built itself during the night. Rumors began to spread. Some neighbors claimed they had seen enormous stones moving silently through the darkness. Others said they noticed Edward standing beside strange wooden machines that looked like primitive cranes or tripods, but no one could explain how a man who weighed barely 100 pounds could raise stones that weighed more than a truck. Over the years, the structures continued to grow. Towering walls appeared. Carefully carved tables and chairs emerged from solid coral rock. Massive monoliths stood upright with astonishing precision, their surfaces smoothed and shaped by hand. And slowly, the construction began to resemble something extraordinary. A stone fortress, a mysterious sanctuary, what would eventually become known as Coral Castle. By the time curious visitors first started arriving to see the strange structures, Edward had already moved hundreds of tons of stone, completely alone. No witnesses, no modern machinery, no explanation. And the deeper people looked into his work, the more unsettling the mystery became. Because the tools Edward used to lift those stones appeared almost impossibly simple. For years, visitors who approached the strange stone structures near Homestead expected to find heavy industrial equipment hidden somewhere behind the walls. After all, moving stones that weighed several tons normally required cranes, engines, or teams of workers. Instead, what they found looked almost primitive. Standing near several of the largest blocks was a tall wooden structure built from thick telephone poles. At the top of this frame sat a simple pulley system attached to chains and cables. The entire device resembled a crude tripod crane that could have been assembled from scrap lumber. This was Edward's primary lifting machine. According to the few people who saw it, the tripod allowed Edward Leedskalnin to raise enormous stones slowly into the air before guiding them carefully into position. But the real mystery was not the tripod itself. The real mystery sat at the very top of the structure. Mounted above the lifting mechanism was a strange container that visitors later began calling the Black Kwambu, black box. It was small, roughly the size of a toolbox, and Edward rarely allowed anyone to examine it closely. Those who managed to glimpse inside claimed it contained a curious collection of parts: coils of wire, magnets, pieces of radio equipment, and various fragments of scrap metal carefully assembled into a compact device. To most observers, it looked like nothing more than junk. But Edward insisted it was something far more important. He claimed the device helped him understand what he called the laws of weight. According to his own writings, gravity was not simply a force pulling objects downward. Instead, he believed all matter was made of tiny magnetic particles, constantly interacting with each other and with the Earth itself. If those invisible magnetic currents could be controlled, Edward believed the weight of an object could be manipulated. In other words, a massive stone might not actually need to be lifted in the traditional sense. Its weight could be reduced. Visitors who heard these explanations often assumed Edward was simply an eccentric inventor with unusual theories about physics. Yet the strange machines scattered around his property hinted that he was conducting real experiments. Some structures were fitted with rotating metal arms. Others held clusters of magnets attached to mechanical frames. Nearby tables were covered with wires, bolts, and discarded radio components arranged in precise configurations. Edward appeared to be building not only a castle, but also a laboratory. And the more time people spent observing the site that would eventually become Coral Castle, the clearer it became that the construction methods remained hidden for a reason. No visitor ever saw Edward actually lift one of the giant stones. No one witnessed the moment when a multi-ton block rose from the ground. By the time anyone arrived in the morning, the work had already been completed during the night. New stones would be standing in place, perfectly balanced, precisely aligned, as if some unseen force had helped position them. But the strangest object in the entire castle had not yet been discovered, because hidden among the coral walls was a massive stone gate that would challenge everything people believed about the limits of balance and engineering. Among all the strange structures hidden inside Coral Castle, one object fascinated visitors more than anything else. At the entrance of the stone compound stood a massive slab of coral rock. It was not a wall. It was a door. Carved from a single piece of limestone, the gate weighed nearly 9 tons. Its surface was thick, solid, and towering above the surrounding walls like a giant shield of stone. Yet something about it immediately confused everyone who tried it. The gate moved, not slowly, not with effort, but almost effortlessly. Visitors quickly discovered that the enormous stone door could be pushed open with a single finger. A gentle touch was enough to send the 9-ton slab gliding smoothly along its pivot. Even a child could move it. The motion was so perfectly balanced that the gate would swing open and closed as if it weighed almost nothing. For many people, this was the moment when the mystery of Edward Leedskalnin stopped feeling like a curious engineering project and started to feel like something far more extraordinary. How could a man with no formal training create such precision? Modern engineers who later studied the gate discovered something remarkable. The entire slab had been drilled perfectly through its vertical center, allowing a metal shaft to pass through the stone like an axle. This shaft was connected to a hidden bearing system buried deep inside the limestone base beneath the gate. The balance had to be almost perfect. If the drilling had been off by even a fraction of an inch, the 9-ton block would have tilted, jammed, or collapsed under its own weight. Achieving such accuracy normally requires advanced tools and precise measuring equipment. Yet Edward worked with simple hand tools and homemade devices. For decades, the gate functioned flawlessly. Visitors continued to test it, amazed by how easily the enormous stone moved. But in the 1980s, something unexpected happened. The gate suddenly stopped working. The smooth motion disappeared, and the stone door became stuck in place. Engineers were eventually called in to investigate. When they removed the slab, using modern cranes, they discovered the hidden mechanism Edward had placed inside the stone base. It consisted of a metal shaft balanced on a truck bearing. The discovery answered part of the puzzle, but it raised an even more difficult question. How had Edward managed to drill a perfectly centered hole through a 9-ton block of solid coral rock? Even today, recreating that level of balance would be extremely difficult without modern equipment. And the gate was only one piece of the larger mystery. Because scattered throughout the stone complex were objects that suggested Edward believed he had discovered something much deeper than clever mechanics. Something connected to the invisible forces that shaped the universe itself. In a series of strange pamphlets he wrote and distributed himself, Edward claimed he had uncovered the true nature of magnetism. And according to him, those invisible magnetic currents held the key to controlling weight itself. Unlike many mysterious builders in history, Edward Leedskalnin did not keep all of his ideas secret. In fact, he tried to explain them. During the years he spent constructing Coral Castle, Edward began writing and distributing a series of small, self-published pamphlets. They were simple booklets, printed on cheap paper and sold to visitors for a few cents. At first glance, they looked like the strange writings of an eccentric inventor. But inside those pages, Edward described a very unusual theory about the structure of matter. He claimed that everything in the universe is made of tiny particles he called individual magnets. According to Edward, these magnets constantly flow through all materials and interact with the magnetic field of the Earth. What we call electricity, gravity, and magnetism were not separate forces in his view. Instead, they were different expressions of the same invisible current. Edward believed that modern science misunderstood these forces. If a person could control the flow of these individual magnets, he claimed, it would be possible to influence the weight of objects. In other words, the massive stones of Coral Castle might not have needed to be lifted with brute strength at all. Their weight could be manipulated. To explore this idea, Edward built a series of strange experimental machines scattered around the castle grounds. Visitors reported seeing wooden frames holding clusters of magnets, coils of wire wrapped around metal rods, and mechanical arms connected to rotating devices. Some of these contraptions looked like crude electrical generators. Others resembled scientific instruments assembled from scrap parts and radio components. Among the most curious devices Edward described in his writings was something he called a perpetual motion holder. The name itself immediately attracted attention. Perpetual motion machines, devices that could produce energy indefinitely without external input, have long been considered impossible according to the known laws of physics. Yet Edward believed he had discovered a way to maintain continuous magnetic motion inside a controlled system. He claimed that when magnets were arranged correctly, they could produce a constant circulating current that never truly stopped. Modern scientists remain skeptical of these claims. No verified perpetual motion machine has ever been successfully demonstrated. But Edward's writings reveal something fascinating. He genuinely believed he had uncovered a deeper understanding of how matter behaves. More importantly, he believed this knowledge was not new. In several passages, Edward suggested that ancient civilizations had already discovered these principles thousands of years earlier. Civilizations capable of constructing monuments that modern engineers still struggle to explain. Monuments like the Great Stone Pyramids of Egypt. Whether Edward's magnetic theory was brilliant insight or misunderstood science remains an open debate. But one thing is certain. The structures inside Coral Castle do not appear random. Many of them follow precise geometric patterns. And some of those patterns seem to point toward the sky. At first glance, Coral Castle appears to be nothing more than a strange stone fortress built by an eccentric man. But the longer researchers study the layout of the structures, the more they begin to notice something unusual. The walls, towers, and carved monuments are not randomly placed. Many of them appear to follow specific astronomical alignments. Throughout the stone complex, visitors can find sculptures shaped like celestial bodies. A massive crescent moon carved from coral rock, a carefully shaped planet resembling Saturn, complete with a stone ring, and a collection of carefully positioned markers that seem to reference the movement of the stars. These carvings suggest that Edward Leedskalnin was not only thinking about magnetism and stone construction. He was also studying the sky. One of the most intriguing structures inside the castle is a narrow vertical tube carved directly through a block of stone. Edward referred to this structure as the Polaris Telescope. When aligned correctly, the tube points directly toward Polaris, the bright star that has served for centuries as a fixed navigation point in the northern sky. Polaris appears almost stationary because it sits nearly above Earth's rotational axis. Sailors and explorers have relied on it for generations to determine direction during nighttime travel. The fact that Edward created a stone instrument specifically aligned with Polaris suggests careful observation and precise measurement. But the Polaris Telescope is not the only astronomical device hidden within the coral walls. Nearby stands a massive sundial carved from stone. Unlike decorative sundials commonly found in gardens, this one was engineered with surprising accuracy. When sunlight passes across the carved markings, the shadow falls almost perfectly on the correct time of day. Even after decades of exposure to weather and erosion, the instrument still measures time with remarkable precision. These features have led some researchers to propose an unusual theory. What if Coral Castle was never meant to be just a monument or a personal sanctuary? What if the entire structure was designed as a giant observational instrument, an observatory built from stone? If Edward truly believed that magnetic forces and celestial movements were connected, then the position of the stars might have been critical to his experiments. The alignment of certain structures could have helped him track the movement of the Earth relative to the cosmos. Such an idea might sound extraordinary. Yet history offers several examples of ancient structures that appear to combine architecture with astronomy. Across the world, civilizations built stone monuments aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and specific stars. Edward may have been attempting something similar, if that was his goal. Coral Castle becomes far more than a mysterious collection of stone sculptures. It becomes a map of the sky, and perhaps a clue pointing toward a much older knowledge that humanity may have forgotten. Have you ever heard of a man who single-handedly built a castle out of massive coral blocks, claiming to have discovered the secrets of the pyramids? This isn't a fantasy story. It's the real-life tale of Edward Leedskalnin and his incredible creation, Coral Castle. Born in Latvia in 1887, Ed was a small man, just 5 feet tall and weighing only about 100 pounds. The story goes that he was jilted by his 16-year-old fiancée, Agnes Scuffs, just one day before their wedding. Heartbroken, he embarked on a journey that eventually led him to Florida, where he would spend the next 28 years of his life building a monument to his lost love, a place he called Rock Gate Park. We know it today as Coral Castle. Here's where things get truly mind-boggling. Ed quarried, moved, and set into place over 1 to 100 tons of oolite limestone. Some of these individual blocks weigh more than the heaviest stones in the Great Pyramid of Giza. One single block is estimated to weigh 30 tons. That's like lifting 20 cars. He did all of this alone, mostly at night, using only simple hand tools he crafted himself from old car parts. How? That's the million-dollar question. When people asked him how he did it, Ed would simply reply that he understood the laws of weight and leverage. He claimed to have tapped into the secret of the pyramids, using what he called perpetual motion holder technology. He even published pamphlets on his theories of magnetic currents, explaining that all matter is made of individual magnets, and that it's the movement of these magnets within objects and through space that produces observable phenomena like magnetism and electricity. He built a perfectly balanced 9-ton gate that was so precise, a child could push it open with a single finger. It swung for decades until its bearing rusted out in the 1980s. When engineers were brought in to fix it, they needed a massive crane just to move the gate that Ed had somehow set in place all by himself. They couldn't figure out how he had managed to center and balance it so perfectly. The castle itself is an engineering marvel. It features a 2-story tower where he lived, intricate carvings, furniture made entirely of stone, including rocking chairs and a heart-shaped table, a functioning sundial that's accurate to within 2 minutes, and even a telescope pointed at the North Star. Everything was carved from solid rock with astonishing precision. What's even more astonishing is that in the 1930s, Ed decided to move his entire castle 10 miles from its original location in Florida City to its current spot in Homestead. Again, he did this by himself, at night, with no witnesses. Locals reported seeing the coral blocks floating through the air, as if they were weightless hydrogen balloons. To this day, no one knows for sure how he accomplished this monumental feat. Was it undiscovered science? Alien technology? Or was Edward Leedskalnin simply a forgotten genius who understood the fundamental forces of nature better than anyone else? He took his secrets to the grave in 1951, leaving behind a stone testament to his lost love and an enduring mystery that continues to baffle scientists and engineers. What do you think? Was Ed a master of forgotten physics, or was there something else at play? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories. Thanks for watching.